Okay, so wrote a little more about my Bering Strait. So I ended off with the last video where the workers are gonna be set free by the Neanderthals to go tell the world about their existence. So the workers return to the supervisor because the supervisor works directly for the government because they're putting this highway in for the Russian government. So he knows all the you know leaders of the Russian government with all the power. So he tells it. So the workers tell his supervisor, and he tells his superiors, and so the superiors and the government they agree to send in some anthropologists and archaeologists into the where the Neanderthals woods are and into their fortress, so they can talk and they can you know question this tribe to see if these archaeologists and these archaeologists and anthropologists don't believe that they're really Neanderthals because they look like humans. They look like them. So they're like, like their whole thing is, oh, Neanderthals were all short, ape-looking, hairy guys, right? The general statement, and this is why anthropologists are so wrong about it because all they're doing is they're like making general statements about them back then, which we all know is like wrong. General statements. They're just like no. The real world doesn't work under their general statements about or like their blanket statements about a certain tribe. Everybody was like around the same size. That doesn't hold water in the real world. Okay, it doesn't. So anyway, the work like I said, so the workers so the so they're so the government whatever they send these archaeologists and anthropologists along with a television crew to film it to go into this fortress to see these supposed Neanderthal tribe. So this so they sit down and after the Neanderthals kind of show them around the ancient primitive Neanderthal fortress, and then they sit down and have a discussion. So the anthropologist, he starts off. I haven't come up with these characters yet. This is still the rough draft. When I do the final draft, and I'm going to have like names and more detail on the individual people. But this is just like the storyline, so you get the idea of what I'm getting at. So the anthropologist starts off. You can't be real Neanderthals, Damon. Why not? Anthropologist. You look more human than us. And Damon. We always did. What makes you think we didn't? Archaeologist. Then where did all those primitive fossils we've been finding come from? And Damon answers, the deformed the deformed ones, like you have in your species. The anthropologist, then how the Cro-Mags wipe you out? And Damon answers the anthropologist, by backstabbing us like you British did to our relatives, the Aboriginals of Australia. So then the anthropologist says, how do we know you're full Neanderthal? And then Damon answers, how do you know we aren't? And he goes, how do you know we aren't? Because we didn't match your irrational general statements on how we should look. We weren't built in a damn factory. The way anthropologists describe Neanderthals, they were like built in a factory. All the like near the same size, near the same weight, near the same care. I mean, that's what you build in factories. They were humans like us, not built in a factory, so they came in who knows what shape and sizes and what look and all different kinds. They weren't made in a factory, so no, you archaeologists are completely 100% wrong with human evolution because you go by general statements when you put it together. It's all made by general statements that don't work in the real world. The world doesn't go by general statements. It never did. So then the anthropologist says, how come we never found bigger fossils, like bigger fossils of bigger people? And Damon says, because the biggest, strongest, and best warrior hunters ran the tribe. And when they died, they were burned, not buried, which means they were burned to ash, the bones and all. You're not going to find any trace of them because they were cremated back then. When Damon says, you modern humans are now led around by the weak. Why in a war we crush you? Then the archaeologist says, Because he's like a military guy. He knows, he's like a. I'm gonna say that I'm gonna make this a military guy who joined him. He's like the head of the military. I'm gonna make him talk. I haven't. I'm working on the characters, but so that he'll be a military leader. Says he's in there with them, and he gets mad. He says, "We'd slaughter you. We'd slaughter you with our modern military against your puny stone weapons." Like he's making fun of the Neanderthals. And Damon says, Who do you think have been actually providing the muscle to build your modern military equipment? Like who they like so since the Neanderthals, they basically looked like us, but they were bigger and stronger and naturally smarter because they had to be to live in such a harsh environment. They've actually been living among us this whole time, helping us build military, and they were they were naturals at building weaponry. The Neanderthals were just natural weapon builders. And so they were the ones who were actually leading everybody in the building. And they were Neanderthals. They weren't, and they just, but they, Neanderthals, they looked like us, but they were physically superior and naturally mentally superior. They didn't, they didn't really need to rely on on man-made stuff because nature gave them all the tools they needed because their genetics came from the Neanderthals millions of years ago who had to be a better made human to survive the harsher nature a million years ago and the bigger predators and like I keep saying. So then the architect says, "We are still the leaders of the world." And Damon says, "Not for long. We're coming back to take back our world and yours. You don't deserve to lead this world. All you do is fail. All you do is fail it with your useless government systems." And the architect and the military leader, "The leaders of the world are hearing this. I suggest you retract those statements." Damon says, Neanderthals never go back on their word, like you homos. Almost he calls them homo sapiens, homos. The archi- so the so then the Damon throws them out of his primitive fortress. See, the thing is, I'm gonna make it where this is gonna be kind of like the fantasy, the kind of far fetched part of the movie, the sensationalized part of my movie is for years and years and years, this Neanderthal, since they learned they also know the modern ways. They've also hung around. They know everything the modern humans know. They know actually more because they're the ones that were leading everybody in the building all the weaponry and in the military. And I'm gonna say like most of the people in the military are actually Neanderthals. That are the actual ones who fight in the military are the Neanderthals because like I said, I'm gonna have the Neanderthals are naturally bigger and stronger and naturally smarter. So like most of the military people fighting the military were actually related, and some of them didn't even know it. Some of them didn't even know it. So I'm gonna have it where they've been building for years and millions of years, hundreds of years. They've been building a secret tunnel that goes around the world, and it links up at the Bering Strait. Like you hear all the stories about how they want to put a tunnel into the Bering Strait and the highway. I'm gonna have it where they did it. The Neanderthals did it. They went into hiding for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and that's what they were doing when they went into hiding for hundreds of years. Everybody thought they were extinct. They were underground building this huge transcontinental tunnel way below the surface for like thousands of years. They've been working on it, and when they kept and as the world modernized, so did they with the tunnel. They started, they learned they got modern tanks that we've never seen before down there. They back in 19 this is 1940. So I'm gonna have it where they have the Neanderthals have been they've been like stealing stuff from the military bases. They've been stealing some of the tanks and everything, and they've been ripping them apart and building them better in this underground like hidden fortress that's like huge. And I I got everything all planned out already, but I'm just finally putting my story together. So I'm gonna come with the next part to kind of tell you what this. So yeah, they've been working on this like modern base below the Siberia. I'm gonna have it where it's below those Diomede Islands, like the big one. their base is like right under there, like under the ocean floor, like way down underneath the sea floor. It's like down there somewhere.